Hello, and I'm really excited to talk about today's topic, which is all about being a confident leader in uncertain times. And I thought it was a topic that we should really come to. It's been on my mind for a while. It's a topic that I talk about regularly with my own clients, both in individual coaching sessions, but also in my group workshops. And it was the theme of a particular workshop that I did just a couple of months ago when I was visiting Estonia. So it's a topic that I wanted to bring to today. And I've recently did a poll on LinkedIn where I asked people what was challenging them most about their leadership right now. And confidence came out as number one. So it's something that I want to dive into to share some insights about what gets in our way, what causes those barriers, but then how do we move forward? How do we become more confident? Now, this is an episode for you, whether you are like some of my clients, where you are at that middle management stage, you have already had some career successes, but you're looking to that next stage, that next level, and you want to get promoted. And that's really important to you as part of your career journey. It's also for those of you who already are at leadership level, who perhaps have got there recently in the last years, but still have that sense of feeling exposed. Perhaps you have days or moments where you do feel that challenge, the self doubt creeping in. And then maybe you are like some of my other clients who are very established leaders already. They are already people who have had great successes, are at the top of their organization, who are leading departments. And they are people who, on the outside, appear incredibly confident, who appear to have it all together, have it sorted. But in reality, in the spaces that I create, there is that moment of self doubt, of questioning, because of course that is natural. That is part of being human. And I think this is really important that I want to name this, that this episode is really for everyone, not just for people who are developing their leadership journey, but those who are already at those leadership levels as well. Because I know how challenging it can be, how lonely it can be on that journey. And particularly in these current moments in time, I'm talking to people who are facing huge complexity in their global teams, leading people and groups of teams across different locations, trying to unite people behind a vision, trying to get them to move forward when there's just this huge uncertainty with the market, within the organization itself, and of course with things like AI. There is just so much that goes on right now in this current moment. And I know that creates also a real sense of pressure, a pressure to perform, certainly, but pressure also to be the leader, to look like you know the answers, to be in charge. And that's not helpful either. So there are a couple of concepts I want to introduce. The first one is that confidence is a journey, which, if you've listened to this podcast for a little while, you might have heard me talk about previously. I really strongly believe confidence is not automatic. It's not something that you're born with or that you have naturally necessarily. I strongly believe that everybody has that opportunity and ability to develop confidence. Also, even if you do feel confident in certain situations and contexts or in a certain role, as you grow, as you expand, that confidence gets challenged. And that's natural and right. Because as you're growing, you're stretching your comfort zone and you're moving into new zones. So, the other idea that I want to share with you is that confidence isn't a light switch. that stays on permanently once you've attained it. It is very much about the actions that you take, the focus you put on it, sometimes on a daily basis, to ensure that you are showing up in your most confident, in your fullest. But it's also completely okay to have those days and those moments when the self doubt creeps in. And that is a very normal part of the human existence. So, what I want to share with you today is, why does this happen? What is it that we can think about and control within the confidence challenge? And then a framework that I'm going to introduce to you to really give you some very practical ways for you to work on your confidence right now. So rather than just telling you to be more confident, I'm going to give you some very specific exercises that I use myself with the people that I help. But let's start with these misconceptions about confidence. I've already spoken about a few. The misconception that you're born with it or you're not, or that others are not feeling this confidence challenge. It's only you. You also might be comparing yourself to others, seeing that they seem so confident and that you're just not there, and that you're going to get perhaps judged, even busted. They might, you have that sense of imposter syndrome, that they might see that you're not that person yet. Whatever the thought, whatever the doubt in your mind, I want you to know that this all happens here. But this is in your mind. It's not the reality. So we have to think about what is happening internally as well as externally. So when we think externally, there might be various reasons that you are feeling challenged. It might be to do with blocks around the organization, competitors, the market. There might be all sorts of reasons why you are not progressing forward on your leadership journey in the way that you want to. But these are external factors, external barriers and blocks. And I want you to really think about parking these, because we cannot control those external factors. They're often influenced by factors beyond our control, by other people, by other influences. So worrying about that is not going to be helpful. So I really want you to take those external factors and just park them. Instead, I want you to think about the internal factors that we can control. Internal factors include things such as our mindset, our confidence foundations, our energy, and our actions. Because ultimately, and particularly that last one, confidence is an action. It's all about the steps you take to get towards confidence. And this is really important, actually, because sometimes I meet people who are waiting to feel the confidence first before they take the action, before they move forward. But the reality is, you're going to be waiting potentially a very long time if you're waiting to feel confident first. Most people that I work with, most people that I help, the key thing that I talk to them about is you take the action first and you feel confidence afterwards. That's how it works. So confidence isn't the absence of fear. You might have heard somebody say that before, but that's the truth and reality. We have to keep moving despite that fear. We have to keep moving forward. So looking at what we can control to improve our confidence, those internal elements: mindset, confidence foundations, our energy, and our action. And I'm going to deep dive into each of these. But when it comes to fear, I also want to share with you a really powerful acronym that I was once taught by another coach, Agnes van Rijn. And it really struck me, and it's something that I use in my own work today because it really is such a powerful way to challenge the narratives that we tell ourselves, the limiting self-beliefs that we sometimes end up saying to ourselves over and over again. And that acronym is FEAR, FEAR. And what it stands for is false evidence appearing real. Now, I love this because I think it's such a powerful way to ask yourself, is what you're saying to yourself really true? So let's imagine the example is that you are saying, everybody else is more confident than me. I don't feel very confident and everybody's noticing. If you apply this acronym, false evidence appearing real, you would be asking yourself, is that true? Like, how do I know that everybody else is noticing I'm not feeling confident? How do I know that they're feeling really confident in the inside? You also might challenge and question your the absolute nature of it. So you might say something along the lines of, well, is it true that I never feel confident? Have there been moments when I felt confident at all in my life? Equally, you might turn it around and say, do I really believe that others feel confident 100% of the time? They never have any self-doubt? And I think this is the key thing that I want to share with you today about this idea of fear. It's very powerful because it puts the pause button on the narratives that might be going through your head, helps you take that step back and just question, is it possible there's an alternative? Is it possible there's another truth that you could see? That is the power of fear. So now we've talked about this idea of looking at misconceptions, understanding what challenges us externally, internally, controlling the controllables of the internal factors, and really challenging some of those limiting self-beliefs with this idea of fear. Now let's get into the framework itself, how to work on your confidence. Now, this is only a short podcast episode, so I'm going to be real with you. Clearly, after listening to this episode, I would not be saying that you're going to be suddenly feeling 100% confident all of the time. But I want to share with you some of these tools that I do use in my work that can start to help you move along on this journey. So this might be a great moment to pause, grab a pen and paper, or make some notes on your phone, whatever your device of choice is, and get some ideas as I ask you these questions. So the first part of this confidence foundations is really understanding who you are. Who are you? Who are you? And I think this is such a big question, like really establishing your leadership identity, knowing what you're about, your strengths, your talents, your capabilities, and really asking the question, how are you showing up as a leader today? Like, where is it that you are already being that leader? And I think that's a really important question, particularly for those of you who are perhaps not at that leadership level yet. Knowing about how you're doing it already can be a really important identifier to give you confidence that you're getting there, you're moving forward on that journey. So I want you to really look at and make a list, like all of the strengths that you have, all of those skills, all of those capabilities, all those things that you know to be true from intuition maybe, but maybe that's been based on feedback from previous performance reviews or informal feedback that you have. And I want you to go to town. I want you to go as long with this list as you can and start writing out, what you are about. I am this. I am this. Write out these skills and capabilities. This is a real recognition because when we do this exercise, we start to see our own talent. We start to see that although we tend to forget on a daily basis, We're already doing great things. We're much further along on our leadership journey than we realize. The other thing that I want you to recognize is you get to decide you are a leader. Now, you might be asking, Victoria, well, how does that work? Because ultimately, I need to get the job title. I need to be given that job title by somebody else alongside the salary and everything else that goes with it. And yes, that's true to a certain extent. But I want you to think about leadership and your confidence towards that leadership as something you decide first. You decide you are the leader. You decide you're going to show up in that way. And yes, the job title is a nice endorsement of that. But waiting for others to endorse you is the backwards way of thinking about it. You have to be in that leadership identity first because you already have those capabilities. You already have lots of core strengths and you already have leadership behaviors that you're demonstrating. So it's about really showing up in full potential, really believing in yourself every day, knowing in your heart, in your mindset that you're there already. And that allows you to bring more confidence forward, to show up more confidently in that way. So this is the who. That's the first part of this framework. The next part of this framework is the what. Now, the what is, what does leadership look like to you? What is your specific goal and ambition? I'd love for you to write it down. Again, whatever device you're using or pen and paper, if you're going old fashioned, just articulate it. What does leadership mean to you? What is it, the goal that is you're trying to achieve? Got that written down? Okay, good. I suspect what you have written down is what is achievable. What is the next step? What you see in the next 12 months. Next, what I want you to do is to go bigger. I want you to think about really broadly, if you allowed yourself to really dream big, to really see your full potential as a leader, what is that goal? What does that look like? That is your bolder leadership goal. That is the ultimate wish that you might want. But maybe you feel quite fearful to say it out loud. Maybe it's something that you've not even maybe admitted to yourself. But I want to invite you to kind of go bigger on this. Because again, if we have that bigger goal, that really ambitious, exciting goal to go for, it stretches us. It takes us further. It pushes us into new zones. And we recognize we have to show up and be more visible in a different way. And that requires us to keep stepping forward, to having that clarity to help you become more confident. So this is the what. So we've had who, we've had the what, and now I'm going to talk about the how. This is probably one of my favorite areas when we talk about leadership confidence. The how for me is your leadership energy and your action. Now, I could do several podcast episodes just about this topic, but I'm going to keep it top line here today. Leadership energy is recognizing that we all show up in our different ways in our energy. So sometimes that is called executive presence or leadership presence. And there is a bit of a myth that we have to do it in this very bold, extrovert, loud way. But here's the thing. I see many different kinds of leaders. And I think that's especially true because I'm working across so many different cultures. And there are different models of leadership within those cultures as well. So, of course, I do work with people who are quite loud and extrovert naturally. But there are so many different ways to be a leader. Quietly reflective, quietly confident, encouraging, connective to the team, a very human type of leader. There are many different centers of gravity to what that leadership energy could look like. And that's really important to recognize because people often feel like that they have to put on a mantle. They have to put on a version of a leadership confidence which doesn't really fit them. And that can feel like wearing a mask. It can take a lot of energy to put on that mask and be that version that you think you're expected to be, but it's not really you. You're copying somebody else's version. So the how here is really about defining your version of leadership energy. And I'm going to invite you as an exercise to think about this. What are those 2, 3 words that would describe you naturally, your version of leadership energy, and the way that you engage with others? I want you to capture that. Once you've got that, I then want you to think about the actions part of this. I've already mentioned that confidence is an action. It's what you do, and then you feel confidence afterwards. So a large part of your self-leadership and stepping into your confidence is working on it, having the daily habits to build up your confidence foundation, your mindset, your energy, and that requires focus. So, for example, that might be about coming back to your leadership identity, knowing what you're good at, your strengths, and reminding yourself of that on a regular basis by journaling around that or creating audios around that. It might be about gratitude. I know that's been very important to me at moments in my career journey and leadership journey. Really recognizing how far you've come and what has also been achieved already, not only looking forwards, but looking backwards. I also know how important my exercise and sport is to me. Again, a very important part of my physical fitness, but also helping me feel really strong inside with my leadership energy. You know what works for you. So really consider this. What is your leadership energy and how do you maintain it? How do you create the momentum and the resilience around that? This is your action plan that you need to think about. What does that look like on a daily or weekly or a monthly basis? So there you have it, the framework. We have talked about who you are in your leadership confidence, the what are you aiming for? So your leadership confidence has somewhere to land, and also the how, your leadership energy and the actions you take to maintain it. There has been a lot in this episode, and I'm also really conscious I haven't gone into the detail of everything. That would be way too much for this one episode. But I also know how important your confidence is part of your human leadership, as you showing up, leading yourself, but also then being able to lead others as well, and creating the space for others in your team to recognize. Again, confidence is that journey, and they don't always have to feel that confidence every day. I mentioned right at the start of today's episode that confidence is what the number one area that I found in my recent poll leaders are struggling with right now. That's why it is the topic of my next leadership breakfast, which is coming up. This is a small group of 9 leaders coming together for powerful conversations about where they're challenged in confidence today and what works for them. What are the actions they take to shore up and be energized in their confidence? This confidential space is deliberately about leaders coming together across industry. There's no formal networking. There's no presentations from me and no panels, but I'm facilitating and guiding a conversation that is powerful and impactful, that creates inspiration and ideas for people to take away. And the next one is coming very soon. It's coming up on the 7th of May, 2026, which is in about a month at the time of this recording. And I think if this is something that resonates with you, I would love to hear from you to see if this would be the right fit for you and get you on the invite list. So if that is of interest, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. My personal profile is Victoria Reynoldson, and let me share more about these leadership breakfasts in central London. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining me. And I would love to know, as we wrap up this episode, where are you challenged with your leadership confidence today? What action are you going to take? And which part of the framework do you need to focus on the most right now? Is it the who, your leadership identity, the what, your leadership goal, or is it your leadership energy and action? I always love to hear from you and get your feedback on these episodes. So just reach out and share your ideas, what you've taken out of this episode. Again, over in LinkedIn in my messages. In the meantime, thank you for being here. Look forward to seeing you next time.